Hello, film fans. Welcome to the Film vs. Film podcast. My name is Martin Harries, your host. I'm a filmmaker on occasion, but mainly can't stop yapping about movies. On this podcast, every episode I pick a topic from a film that's coming out at the cinema or on streaming. I pick a favourite film from that topic and battle it out against a guest to decide which film will become the greatest film of all time. If you enjoy this podcast, please leave us a 5-star review and subscribe. Please enjoy part 1. Hello, podsters or podroonies. If you prefer, we are back again for another episode of the Film vs. Film podcast. And as the Thunderbolts, with an asterisk, is out in the cinema, we are going to be talking about its main star, I think. Yes, it's kind of an ensemble film. But let's be honest, we're all here for one particular actress and one particular actress only, and that is Florence Pugh. So we'll be talking about her films. And I am joined by returning guests, the brilliant and fantastic John and Georgia from the Comfort Films podcast. And as always, we are doing an episode featuring films that are not comforting whatsoever. Hello.
That's our trademark.
How are you guys?
This is true. Neither one of, well, I mean, maybe an argument could be made for both. Maybe we'll make that argument. But yes, I agree.
None of us are Swedish, so
that's true. Apparently the Swedes laughed through Midsommar and thought it was a great dark comedy. So,
all right.
Yeah, thanks for having us back again. It has been a while, and we're really happy to talk to you. It's always a great time.
Yeah, it's always awesome talking to you, as always. So, I know you guys are on a bit of a break at the moment from podcasting. I'm certainly desperate for you guys to come back and record again because you're brilliant.
Aw, thanks, Martin.
But tell the folks at home listening, where can we find you, and tell us about your podcast.
Yes, so we're Comfort Films podcast. You can find us pretty much wherever you get your podcast. Most people listen on Apple, I think, maybe Spotify as background one. And we have an Instagram that hasn't been as active lately, but we usually put content up there supporting the movies we're discussing and clips and things like that with us and our guests. We like to talk about comfort films, which sometimes is, a classic pick that you watched, with your family on the holidays, or sometimes it's a weird choice that you just happen to like, even though there's blood and gore everywhere. Midsommar, cough, cough. But, we love to just talk about the movies that we watch over and over and kind of what it is about those movies that makes them so addictive. So definitely check us out. We haven't released an episode yet this year. We haven't come back for season 4, but we will be back next month. So more things to come in that space. And we have a pretty tremendously huge back catalog at this point. Our last episode was the holdovers around New Year's, which was great. We had a friend of ours, Sanjay Solomon, who was part of the Pulitzer Prize winning journalism team that covered the Boston Marathon bombing. He was my college roommate in grad school. And he also lived in the locations where Holdovers was filmed, which was really interesting.
Oh, wow.
So if you haven't checked that one out, definitely go back. But we have well over 100 episodes in our back catalog at this point to listen to and love.
That was well said.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And next month we'll be back with Dungeons and Dragons Honor Among Thieves.
Yeah.
With
cool.
Catherine, a friend of mine from an old job who was with us previously on Galaxy Quest, which was one of her favorite episodes. So we're looking forward to welcoming her back.
Love Galaxy Quest.
It's awesome.
So good. Never gets old.
No, yeah, definitely very rewatchable in my eyes. So we're relating this episode to Thunderbolts, the new Marvel film. What do you follow the Marvel films, guys?
Somewhat.
Interested, not interested?
Watch the trailers.
Yeah, we have followed them in the past. I think we kind of needed a break because we were pretty oversaturated.
Yeah.
I think that's like a common theme among movie lovers.
It was called Endgame for a reason.
Yeah, we were like,
the game's over.
Yeah, so, I mean, that's certainly an opinion of a lot of people. it should have ended after Endgame, but there's just far too many comics, I think, from Marvel not to sift through for them. You know,
yeah.
so I do understand it.
As
But,
long as they make money, I think they'll be making the
Yeah.
movies.
Well, and it's a movie
Yeah.
thing, right? Like they'll call things the last one, like totally different franchise, but like Friday the 13th, the fourth one is
Yep.
called The Final Chapter,
Yep.
right? And then we just kept going.
We literally covered that film this year.
That right? That was a pretty
It's a pretty
wild
good one. Yeah.
Yeah, Corey.
Really
Feldman.
creative with the kills there. Yeah. Yeah, so Thunderbolts is kind of an interesting one because they're kind of combining a lot of very minor characters from like the Black Widow film, one of the TV shows. So just kind of like picking a few of the kind of minor, smaller characters, but kind of still have something really intriguing and interesting about them, and kind of sort of anti-heroes as well. So very morally grey characters. You know, a lot of the heroes were kind of fighting these characters in previous films and TV shows as well. So it's kind of described as Marvel's Suicide Squad kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, but what's also very interesting is that one of the trailers was kind of portraying it as if it was a A24 movie, more of like a sort of a arty independent film, which is, I guess, kind of a strange move from Marvel. But yeah, it was weird.
I mean, yeah, maybe they're just trying to communicate that it's like supposed to be kind of a different
now.
feel.
Yeah.
Maybe a lot of people are oversaturated and aren't coming in as much as they want. But we watched some of the trailers for this, and I also described it as a Marvel Suicide Squad immediately.
That's what
because it does have like that more, I feel, commercial kind of mainstream appeal that Marvel tends to go for, but with kind of that putting together a ragtag team kind of a feel to it. And I actually thought it looked interesting. I don't think Black Widow was hugely well received by folks, but I actually liked it. I think you did too.
I enjoyed that quite a bit.
And Florence Pugh had to be, you know, a good portion of the reason for that, because I just think she's so unbelievably great in everything she does. And she really brings like the same kind of energy and work ethic, like, I guess I'm saying, to everything. So I, you know, thought that it turned out pretty great. I wish that they had released it earlier. So that, you know,
right.
I think that was my biggest problem with it. But David Harbour's also always a good time, and his Alexi character is kind of hilarious. So, you know, I feel like I would give this movie a shot.
I would give it a shot too. I mean, it's like, you know, maybe it's like, as opposed to Endgame, like New Game, right? Like I think
rematch.
Yeah, like this is it. I mean, I would watch it. I mean, you have Wyatt Russell, who I always enjoy, right? And you have Julia Louis-Dreyfus, who's always funny, and I feel like her character in this is just like an extension of Veep. So it's like a Veep crossover with Marvel. So I can definitely go with that.
And Bucky's been one of my favorite characters in Marvel.
Been there for a while.
Group, so. I mean, he's always good. And Sebastian Stan has this on lockdown at this point. He could just switch off and on and be Bucky, I think.
Well, they also gave him like kind of like from the trailers like this Wolverine vibe, right? Because we've got Wolverine made of metal, and then he's got his metal arm, and then he's got, you know, like the scruff, and he's the tough guy that like talks low, like bah, 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 bah.
Well, I like
that's just how Sebastian Stan sounds in every movie. Yeah.
John's acting chops coming through already.
Yeah, I mean, John's impression game, as always, like top shelf.
Yeah. I mean, all I want to hear from the Thunderbolts really is just Florence Pugh say, Kate Bishop.
Yeah. Well, it's crazy how she could go ahead and just be completely different in every movie. And like, I know who Florence Pugh is, but at the same time, whenever I see her in a different project, it takes me a while to register that this is the same person. You know, because, you know, Midsommar, you know, or Midsommar, I always feel weird saying that. Midsommar.
That's how Ari Aster says it.
All right, we'll go with him. Midsommar. Yeah, like, you know, when you just jump off the ledge in terms of pronunciations and you're like, I'm going for it, you know? All right, Midsommar. And I really like what she's doing there. And then we took a look at The Wonder, which neither of us had any idea about.
We didn't even have Netflix. It's only on Netflix.
Yeah, we got Netflix because of you.
Oh. Sorry, I was just under the assumption that like everyone has Netflix.
we usually rotate our streaming selection, so we kind of will be on one for a while, catch up, and then move to another one.
Yeah.
And we were kind of in an Apple TV rotation.
Oh, yes.
Because they have just a lot of really good shows right now.
Yeah.
So that was what we were doing, but we haven't had Netflix in quite a while. So now that we got it to see The Wonder, we're also just binging a ton of stuff that we haven't seen. So no harm there. It's actually a good thing.
Yeah. It was nice to see it. And it was nice to see something entirely different with actors that we recognize in The Wonder and say, okay, we've got kind of this homespun story, and again, it's like a folk story, which is great. Like these two movies pair very well together.
This is true.
Definitely.
I mean, I'm excited about that.
So, should we go with your choice then, guys? What did you go with for Florence Pugh movies?
We did pick Midsommar.
We did?
Yes, we did.
Oh, wow.
Of course we did.
Did not see that coming.
Yeah.
I mean, I know. That was probably like I don't know. I think that was the first time where Florence Pugh, at least for us, really hit our radar.
Yeah.
Because as she had been in other stuff before that maybe wasn't as mainstream, but Midsommar came out, I think it's Ari Aster's second movie after he had done Hereditary, and Hereditary was like such a big hit and everybody was talking about that movie. So when Midsommar came out, people were really excited, like, oh, the Hereditary guys made another movie. And then, this person is in it who I wasn't really familiar with at the time. And I just thought her performance was so unbelievable that I couldn't stop thinking about it pretty much ever. Like, to be honest with you, I don't think we watched Midsommar more than once. I think we saw it at the theater. It lived rent-free in my head for ages because it's a very visual film. There's so many images that you can't get out of your head, and there's so much shocking stuff that happens that, it kind of imprints on you a little bit. But even through all of those big things, Florence Pugh's ability to take this role and just absolutely inhabit it in just an unbelievably rich way just took the movie to a different level for me.
Yeah, the first time I watched Midsommar, it was very much same reaction as you, Georgia. There was just certain images that just stuck in my head for a long time. I'd finally got all the horrifying images out of my head from Hereditary. Watched this movie. It seemed to erase them and just replace them with more weird stuff. But yeah, just certainly like Jack Rayner in the bear costume. Very different film that. Yeah, but certainly with Florence Pugh, like I think Fighting with My Family came before it, and I was aware of like Lady Macbeth, but I hadn't seen that. But certainly with this, I was just like quite taken aback with how visceral and how far she went, with her emotions. It was quite remarkable, really, how intense she could get herself in these incredible, like that kind of group wailing scene towards the end. That was quite remarkable to watch. Yeah. What was your first initial reaction to Midsommar, John?
Man, when we saw Midsommar,
go with anything.
All right.
You're good.
When we saw the Mid movie, the first impression that I had was full on shock. I didn't know what to expect. Florence Pugh's acting is really what's front and center in the film, and everyone's fantastic in it. But if you did not have her, I don't feel that you would have a film. Because in every scene, just like you're talking about, Martin, she's carrying this emotional weight. This is like a Greek tragedy, and she has to carry this for 2.5 hours. And all we keep doing is compounding tragedy after tragedy the further we go in the film. So you see how heavy it starts with her. and you know that by the end, it's just going to be off the charts. So emotionally, it was extremely heavy. It was something where it gave me a sense of dread that I really appreciated because it propelled the movie forward. Them going to the festival was a really nice move for me because I felt like the progression was there. The pacing of the film is incredible. At roughly 2.5 hours, this thing will fly by. Like 10 minutes will go by and you didn't even know that you had it. I found, some of the dark humor initially in the film. When we did the rewatch, I found more of it because when you break apart these moments, they are just such high drama that it is kind of comical. It's just, if you think about like the fire department coming into the building and they're following this hose, right? It's this massive hose that goes upstairs and then it's like taped to the sister's face. I just thought about how long it would take to tape that. And like how much, and how much tape did she have?
She used a lot of tape.
Did she have like somebody come in, just help me out quick? I'll give you $10.
And it was duct tape too.
Yeah, I mean, I was just like, did someone actually do that to her, maybe? Or is she getting this all wrong? Because that is quite something to do, to literally completely tape that hose around your mouth.
She was taking no chances. I mean, it was also duct tape too. So like, that is not coming off because it doesn't have to. She was committed to ending that.
It reminded me of like this Black Sabbath album cover, "Never Say Die." And like somebody has like the mask that you wear, when you're like a fighter pilot hanging off their face. And then like, I think Ozzy Osbourne used to like smoke pot out of it. So like, that's kind of what I was thinking. Like, wow, she took a massive rip, huh?
I feel pretty confident you're like the only person who ever thought that. And I'm really happy about that.
I can confirm I was not thinking that.
That is a John Macy patented thought right there.
So, what happens in Midsommar?
What does happen?
Well, a girl has a lot of problems. I mean,
and everyone she knows
eventually,
dies.
Eventually things turn out okay. Maybe for her, we don't know. But yeah, so let me just get my names up so I don't forget anyone.
It's hard with the names.
So your central character is Danny, who's played by Florence Pugh. She is assuming like a college student. She's dating this guy who's a grad student named Christian, played by Jack Rayner. And their relationship is not great. At the beginning of the movie, it's kind of codependent. And we get the feeling that he doesn't necessarily want to be with her. But because she's just got so much baggage with family problems and things, and she's always calling him and interrupting his bro time with his friends.
That important time.
Yes, of course.
Will Potter is pissed. Yeah.
They were getting pizza, bro. I mean, come on. That's sacred time.
But, he kind of dismisses her anxieties and her worries about her family situation, which turns out to be absolutely wrong because her sister, who is suicidal, has decided to go through with suicide and also take their parents with her. So kind of the worst possible thing I feel that could happen happens to Danny. She loses her entire family in a really tragic murder-suicide. And she's already an anxious and emotional, nervous person. And so that's kind of the setup for the film. How lovely. And then, a time period has passed. Christian is still with her, but their relationship has not improved at all. Maybe it's just gotten even worse because he just feels like he has to be with her because she's gone through bad things and he can't leave. And then she finds out that, unbeknownst to her, he has planned a trip to Sweden with his friends. And of course, didn't even speak to her about it, which is even more painful to her. So with his guilt in full force, Christian invites her to come with them on this trip. I personally think that there was kind of a long game aspect in Pelly kind of suggesting this as well. But we can get into that later. She goes to this kind of Swedish village, which is celebrating a summer festival that only does once every 90 years. It's kind of a group of people who's away from the world, kind of lives in primitive conditions and lives according to nature and tradition. And these outsiders come into this festival and observe all of these customs, which get worse and worse, I guess, over time.
They do.
And eventually, we find that the outsiders have been invited not to, observe and participate, but to pretty much be the victims in this folk horror nightmare. And Danny is kind of not a victim. She becomes more part of that culture, to the point where she's elected May Queen and makes a decision at the end that makes her kind of a full participant in the sacrificial nature of the summer festival. And that is the movie.
It could have been titled "Kill the Right One," because we have the opening, right?
In a bear costume.
Yeah, right. Yeah. It's just basically, I was thinking about it. This is so weird. So we have this woman who, her sister kills herself and the sister kills the parents, goes on vacation. The boyfriend cheats on her. The boyfriend gets killed. She gets flowers and stays on vacation forever.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Yes.
I mean, from a certain perspective, like I said,
it's a happy ending.
A happy ending.
It is a happy ending.
I think that it was intended to be a happy ending, but it's a happy ending that you're super uncomfortable with. Yeah. So
Ari Aster said that he had a relationship where he had just broken up. And he had written this when he was still kind of going through it. So, when you think about the film in those terms, it's kind of like, he is our lead character and he's watching his partner that cheated on him, get killed.
So there's a real woohoo at the end of that. But I mean, I do think, Danny's pain is the central to the film. It's not, it's all of her pain, her pain from her family's deaths, her pain from her terrible relationship, her pain from her anger at herself with having anxiety and not being able to deal with this stuff. Which, she's been pretty hard on herself, because I don't think anyone would have an easy time dealing with this murder-suicide thing. No. I mean, when that was something that really hit me the first time we saw it. I mean, you're 10 minutes into this movie and you have this horrible murder-suicide thing happen. And it's just gutting. And, Florence Pugh really
brings it with the intensity straight away.
She does. She's so upset. But then even after, time has passed, I think that her portrayal of grief is really accurate. That, grief will just hit you like this ton of bricks. And then, really she has no support, because Christian is mid at best as far as a supportive boyfriend goes. She knows that he doesn't really care about her, and every single thing he does proves that. I mean, you said he cheats on her. I don't know he technically does. I don't know how much of that is really his choice, because there's also a lot of psychotropic drug use going on.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
God.
But so part of it, is, but I don't know. Even if he didn't cheat on her on purpose, he still's the shittiest boyfriend.
He was thinking about it long before any drugs came into play to coerce him to do it.
Yeah.
He was looking for something. You could tell, because this is just a character that you cannot depend on for anything.
Well, he's selfish. He's so selfish. I mean, we see this when, he decides that he wants to write about the Horga for his anthropology PhD, when their other friend Josh literally came on this trip because he was planning to write about it. So he treats everybody bad. He's a really selfish and entitled guy with everyone.
So shall we start with directing then, as we always do? So I think in the beginning, when they're in the US and planning to go to Sweden, I think it's it's very simply directed, apart from maybe that little great sequence where Florence Pugh's character Danny is talking to Pele, and Pele is like, apologizes about what happened to her family, and of course Danny just gets really upset, bringing back all those memories, and she goes out the door, and there's this great overhead like transition shot that goes onto the airplane. So that told me straight away that this is going to be an awfully long process for her, that she is still grieving from that point all the way on to the plane, and obviously throughout the film, but it was certainly visually, not just from her performances, that this is going to be a long process for her. But then I think it certainly gets a lot more interesting from Ari Aster's point of view with the camera when they reach Sweden. And I think the direction is still very simple, apart from that clear shot when they're kind of driving and the camera slowly kind of turns upside down and almost gets lost in the sky, it felt like, until it comes back level again. That was kind of really interesting and really great, actually. Then we have like Danny's little drug trip that felt, that first one, that felt quite conventional for like a horror film in a way. But I did love how you couldn't tell when kind of the wobble effects in the grass and in the background started and stopped. So I kind of love that. But apart from that, everything feels quite calm. But then it gets too calm and very quiet during that first dinner table scene when Ari Aster almost goes into Wes Anderson mode, where it gets very symmetrical and deathly quiet at times. And the Americans like bickering just felt very uncomfortable. So it's super eerie in that scene in particular. Yeah, and when a lot of the American characters were talking, it was just like, oh my God, shut up. What are you doing?
As Americans, I know that we are, as a people, quite obnoxious. And I do think they were definitely playing that up. This is why people like travel to other places and are like, we're from Canada. No, you're not. No, you're not. Yeah, John and I endeavor to not be those people. But yeah, I know them. I've seen them. I mean, we live in a very touristy place, so we see, people coming from other parts of the U.S. who are just like cringe city with their behavior. So it happens.
Yeah, it's an incredible atmosphere that Ari Aster creates with that. I mean, it's a very calming atmosphere anyway when you first get to Sweden. And it's almost like you're not really watching a folk horror film at all. But then when you get to this one, just the kind of that quiet, eerie feel with all kind of the symmetrical imagery, it just feels too calm and it just feels very uncomfortable. Did you get that same feeling?
Yeah, even like the buildings are kind of, the angles are all wrong. It feels like the roof pitch is weird. Like, and I'm looking at that all the time and thinking just that it kind of feels a little bit disturbing, because the one thing that I think he does a great job with is, this is like the most colorful and bright horror film I think that exists. Everything just feels like Midsommar. It's hot, it's sunny, it's bright, there's flowers everywhere, everything is green. The costumes are all white with, blue accents and things like this. And, they just look like, I don't know, Delft, China or something with the outfits they have on.
Everyone's got incredibly blonde hair.
Yeah, we're red. Like everybody's very just, bright and shiny. Vibrant. And it's very interesting. And I actually saw a little thing about the costumes and how they were made, and they used like 100-year-old linen, and like everything was hand embroidered. Like every single piece that you see is handmade on the Horgans, because that's what it would be, if you lived in this commune outside of society. You have to do with what you have, and they're trying to create visual of people who have kind of handmade everything, and who live away from everything. And I think that's really, really interesting. I think that kind of upside down camera shot, which they clearly love because they use it in every like making of kind of documentary thing too.
Yeah.
But I think that there's like a Wizard of Oz element to that, because
definitely.
in Wizard of Oz, you have the tornado, and then suddenly she's in a new world, and here, like, you literally see her world turn upside down, and then she's in another place. And then John actually brought up, like, maybe more of an Alice in Wonderland parallel as well, because, she drinks the mushroom tea and kind of goes on a trip, to a different land.
Yeah.
So there's kind of these fairy tale, or, traditional tale type elements that he's bringing in from the beginning. And I also think his attention to detail is very impressive. I mean, Ari Aster is the writer-director, so this is completely his brainchild. And throughout the movie, you see, his stamp on everything from, little things. I mean, I would say, like, something that I was really attuned to this time when we watched it was the character of Pelly, because he's probably my favorite character, because what the hell is going on with this guy? So I watched it the whole time with him. And there's parts where, like, if you're just paying attention to what one person's doing, you can see that there's this vision of what's going on in every, pixel of the frame. Like, when she comes out of the airplane bathroom to walk back to her seat, Pelly looks back at her. Like, because Pelly is always thinking about Danny. Where's Danny? What's Danny doing? How's she feeling? Because his whole deal is, like, I think that he is, like, in love with her in whatever way it's possible for a completely psychotic, commune living murder cult guy to be in love with somebody. And I mean, he's just so attuned to her at all times. And you see that if it's in every frame where they're together. Like, he's, like, glancing at her, whatever. And part of that is acting, but part of it is also screenplay and direction. And I just think
blocking the characters out.
I just think that every single thing is thought through. Will Poulter was also talking about how this movie was kind of more choreographed than movies he's worked on before. And, like, he's not involved in any dance part, right? He's just talking about even just where he's walking in the frame. And, Ari Aster has a very clear direction of how he wants everybody to move, where he wants you to be, what he wants you to look like. And he's able to communicate that to people in a way that works.
This is where you need to piss on the tree.
That is the most uncomfortable, cringy American manners thing, I think.
Yeah, the pissing on the tree. Like, I can see, like, a million people doing that. And just be like, oh man. It's like...
well, his character is the worst.
Will Poulter is a genius.
One of the great little pieces of detail that I really liked, and it's associated with where it's kind of after Josh's death. I really like Josh's death scene, where, again, there's, like, nothing particularly spectacular about it, but you have, like, the classic camera creeping slowly towards Josh from behind as he's kind of taking photos of something he shouldn't be taking photos of. But he doesn't get killed right away. He gets spooked by Mark, but you can tell immediately that something's not quite right with him. And it's obviously strongly insinuated that he's already been killed off screen already, as he's pissed on the ancient tree of the where their ancestors were buried. And you can see, like, a dark patch on his groin. And you're like, well, that's what happens when you pee on Swedish ancestors. Then, like, Josh gets hammered by a hammer. Interestingly, though, you just see, like, the hammer swing, and you don't see the person doing the murdering. I assume it was the disabled, like, Oracle type character that did it. But the most shocking moment is when this other person stands over Josh's body, and it doesn't appear to be Mark at all. Oh, it does appear to be Mark, sorry, for a moment. But there are these kind of weird red outlines on his eyes and around the neck. And the colouring of his face is weird, very pale. Then you soon realise that someone's, like, doing a Hannibal Lecter and wearing Mark's face. Well, that's what it looked like to me anyway. Very creepy.
No, that's what I thought about too.
I think it's supposed to be the character of Ulf wearing Mark's face.
Oh, right.
a mask. I mean, it's almost like a Michael Myers Halloween kind of a thing
Yeah.
I can see
going on. Yeah, Ulf is the one that was super
That was
pissed
great.
about the pissing scene. He was the one that was screaming at Mark.
Mm.
So it feels to me like he's gotten his revenge.
Well, I think that when we look at this, that, yeah, the direction is not like anything I've seen in a while. This is like Stanley Kubrick level of detail. And everything about the film is mapped out. Like Georgia was talking about, you can definitely feel Wizard of Oz. You can definitely feel Alice in Wonderland. You know, when we see kind of the first trip in the film, we see the colors change on the screen. You know, it's like that's one of the things that this film does a lot, are these really heavy transitions. Like in the trip scene, I think it's maybe red, then another red. I can't remember exactly. But we go to a full screen of two completely different, like, color panes. Then we, come later in the movie where we go to black. And that's that horrifying scene where it's like one eye is closed and then the other. You know what I'm talking?
Oh, yeah, that was great.
Oh my God, that
very
was brilliant.
creative.
Yeah, I was just like, okay, this is a death.
When they take out Jack Rayner. Yeah,
thank you. The bear.
Well, and then the burning scene, like everything just becomes yellow. The building is yellow. The fire is yellow.
Yeah.
Like the colors in this, that's the
just best
gets
part brighter and brighter.
It does.
It brings us back to The Shining, because one of the things in The Shining was all of these bright colors. You remember when they were talking to Wendy in the apartment before they go up to the Overlook? All of the books on the shelf behind her are all of these different bright colors. And then when you go to the Overlook Hotel, you have all these patterns and colors that pop to you. Early in the film, this is one of the things that really gets me. Red and blue are very important in this film. And we see it when the firefighters come in, because we have, like, the red and the blue is the firefighters are coming in and they're following this yellow hose up. So it's like, okay, here we are going with all of these bright primary colors. And then we follow them to where they terminate. And it's just like, oh God, it's like the end of the rainbow is death. I feel is what they're giving us. And also everything with the outfits. Again, George talked about it. Yeah, I couldn't believe it when they said like 100-year-old linens, and then they're working on this. I mean, you see the red and the blue, and you see like these patterns, and each one of those patterns, the costume designer said, was actually specific to each individual character. So every person we see on screen in this has an entire story. So
there's like a runic designation on each dress and shirt.
Yeah.
Can't even see these things, but this is the level of detail I think that you're getting to with Ari Aster, is that, like, even, down to something that you may not see, but it's there, so that, the actor has to work off of, and the other actors have to work off of them. And it does make everything feel really unified.
It does, because they're in this village that was nothing. They built this village for the film out in the middle of nowhere, so they were able to really make this community pop. And, like, also the thought that was put in with all of the shots, like editing, of course, is a part of it, but it's also the way you shoot it as well. These gorgeous match cuts, like the first thing you talked about, in the plane, when we see Danny go into the bathroom, and that, it's actually in the apartment. She goes to the bathroom, and we go to this overhead. We're in the airplane. We also have that great shot of Josh. He's sitting down. That goes from day to night. We have so many wonderful moments like that where it is intricate, and it does make you think about Wes Anderson, as you mentioned, Martin, because Wes Anderson loves a storybook style. And the biggest thing about this film is that the story is told pictorially, like Grimm's fairy tales. We start, with that cloth, right? And we go through the seasons. I love how they do this. We go through the seasons, and, we start in winter, and winter usually symbolizes death. And that's where we see, the death of the sister in the family. And then we move forward. And then we have that that other scroll painting with the
how to make a pie.
Well said. Well said. And when that pie is delivered,
I'm not eating that pie. No, thank you.
Very specific type of pie. No, not everybody's gonna want this one. Well,
not a hairy one.
Oh God! And he takes out.
Yeah,
he
that's
takes.
so
Oh
gross.
my God!
That's so gross.
Oh my
There's a
God!
pube in my pie.
Oh
Anyway.
man!
Well, I think it's interesting about that first tapestry is that it does start if you're reading it from left to right, which I don't know.
It seems
if you're supposed
pretty
to or not.
normal.
Yeah, it does, but it also starts in winter, and I feel like most of the time when you see something that's supposed to show a year, it ends with winter. But this one starts with winter, so it's a journey from winter to summer.
Spring.
And there's some kind of metaphorical thing there too for Danny, that she goes from like this cold and dark place to like this bright place that is still horrific in its own way, but she finds her place there. She's a person who's never felt like she has a place, I think, and she finds her place in this very unlikely kind of village.
Well, with the winter, what I really like is they have that push in. Remember, we're in the middle. We can see the snow outside with the window.
Oh yeah,
and then we have the paintings on either side.
The paintings is a great thing too. Like you've got. I mean, this is another thing. Like, he's just very conscientious, and I think the Kubrick analogy is really good. Like, he's very conscientious of what's in the frame, where it is, what it looks like. Because, when Danny's having her, like, huge breakdown on the couch with Christian, there's this, like, phases of the moon kind of painting on the left side, and then this thing that looks like, I don't know, demons and hell on the right side.
Yeah.
And, it's very interesting because you have, like, nature, which is a huge part of this movie, and that's I think what Pelly kind of represents me at the end of it. She's got her like flower outfit on. I don't know what we're even calling this.
I love that.
And then he has like the green man kind of like greens on his head. He's like nature and pushing her to kind of embrace the cyclical aspects of nature. I mean, when they're having their trip at the very beginning before they go into the village, I believe that it is Pelly who's talking about nature and how the trees are breathing, because he is so tied into that, and it's like he's trying to instruct Danny like the whole time. It's like I feel like he has this idea that he can fix what's wrong with her, whether she likes it or not, and he kind of is pushing her the entire time to have emotional outbursts and to be more emotional. It's like her depth of despair and emotion is what is attractive to him, because it's like that's what he finds meaningful, is like experiencing these deep, intense emotions. And she does start experiencing those things. She, again, this is Ari Aster's direction, I think, when this is the worst part of the movie to me. The part that never gets out of my head is the old people jumping off the cliff.
Yep.
And the first lady is bad enough. She lands face first onto this rocky outcropping. Her head like explodes. It's foul. But then the old man is worse because he kind of misses the rock and just kind of lands on his legs, which are just horribly mangled and broken. And then they have to walk over with like a giant hammer and like beat his head in. Well, they will show you this shot of, I believe it's Christian, Danny, Mark, or Josh. I can't remember. No, it's Josh and Pelly. And they're kind of arranged in the frame. And when they go to hammer this dude's face in, Christian and Josh are horrified and they turn away. And remember, these are the two anthropology guys who are so jazzed to study the Horga. But when they see what the Horga actually do, they're disgusted and they turn away. Danny and Pelly do not. Both of them witness the horror. And I think that that's like something that we see Ari Aster drawing your attention to in really subtle ways throughout the movie, that Danny has to witness the horror. She has to feel the pain. She has to go through all of these things so that she can come out on the other side. And like her final challenge is, do you pick the choice to sacrifice a rando from Horga who you don't even know that you won't feel anything for? Or do you choose to kill your boyfriend who you still have some sort of feelings with, so that's going to be the more painful choice, and she chooses the painful choice? And for her, that's like the transformation. She's made the most painful choice, and it's like that makes her ready to like become her true self. It's super interesting. And like I don't know how much of that is thought out, and like or how much of it is just that magic that happens when you tell a story. But I feel like Ari Aster is very directorial, and he makes a lot of very specific choices. And I really feel like he knows what he's doing. And I just think he's pretty brilliant. And this, I liked Hereditary. I didn't love it, but Midsommar, I think, is really tip top as far as movies go.
Yeah. In terms of like what you're saying, Georgia, with like, the facing the pain, I think there's something tied in with finding your own family, like found family versus your own family. And in this film, literally her entire family is wiped off the map, right? And then, she's kind of in her boyfriend's friend group, and that's kind of like her found family, and that is a terrible family. And then she comes to this place, and then she finds her people. So I think, I don't know where that is. Like,
she kind of finds her truth in the end, her true self, after she's gone through all this incredible emotional trauma.
Well, it's like a gang. It's like blood in, blood out.
Yeah.
One
of my, not my favorite scene, but certainly one of the scene that kind of, it gets really kind of interesting, and it's sort of like the beginning of Danny's transition into becoming a member of this community is the dancing maypole scene. I thought was really interesting, where it has some level of intensity to it, especially when the camera's like right tight on Florence Pugh's face. But the scene also has some like comedy there too for me, when some of the other girls just collide into each other and just fall over. It almost gives the scene this almost innocent quality to it, and childlike play as well. Also, when the sort of cross dissolving happens, when each shot kind of blurs into one another, that gets so intense that you get this very like faint white figure of Florence Pugh, like she's just kind of losing a part of herself as she's dancing, and the tea is definitely taking hold for sure at this point. Then when she wins and becomes the May Queen, and the dinner that follows is amazing, where it's not like deathly quiet this time. There's a great like creepy score, but I loved it when the man next to Christian, Jack Rayner's character, like claps his hands in his face, and the background just like ripples. Then from then on, like there's like tiny parts of the dinner are kind of still wobbling from his and Danny's perspective, and you're like, hang on, is that waving and wobbling? Oh, it is. Okay. So I love the fact that a lot of these kind of wide shots aren't really trying to like focus your eye in any particular point in the frame. Like your eye is kind of wandering sometimes around the frame, actively looking for trippy wobbly bits in the frame. Brilliantly done for me. That was what I was doing anyway.
I think Pelly says like the trees are breathing, the earth is breathing, and things like that, and that's what I think they're trying to like mimic in a way, and it's really cool. And it does happen in a lot of different points. And so like it does make you also question like how much of this is real and how much of this is hallucination, and how deep are these hallucinations. But
it starts early too. Like, Danny takes the Ativan early in the film. Now, I've never taken Ativan. Like it's supposed to be like anti-anxiety, right? Like a calming thing.
Like a Xanax almost.
Okay. So it could, bring you down. Perhaps it could make you sleepy, but, it can bring you into this kind of, dreamlike state. And throughout the film, it's like drug use is rampant. It's just like every few minutes we're going again. And it's just like, I don't know, it's like Woodstock or something,
well,
you know,
to the point
or
where
what I imagine Woodstock would have been like.
They don't even want it. Well, not they, but Christian doesn't even want to do it anymore. Like when they are trying to make him have that drink because they're really trying to, they're really trying to force him to go and have sex with Maya. At that point, like, you know, they've done everything. They gave him the special pad. They did all this stuff. They're like, have this drink. You know, and
calling that the special pie, I just really want to give you like credit and a spotlight for that.
I don't really know what to call it.
I think you named it just right.
But you know, they've been
pushing
him.
Yeah.
They've been pushing him the whole time to like do this, and they're just like, drink this. You know, this is a special drink, and he's like, oh no, I don't even want to anymore, because he's just like, he's realized that he is not the hero of the story anymore.
No.
And he doesn't even want to participate anymore at that point. But then he does. And to me, that scene of him having sex with Maya is probably the funniest scene in the movie.
Yeah.
I mean, it starts out really weird.
For sure.
I mean, it's very strange. Like, you know, when he goes in there and there's this like semicircle of like naked elders.
Oh my God.
But this is again showing us that this community experiences feelings as a group.
Collective,
they don't have, they're not individuals. They experience things as a group. And I think that's kind of, again, what Pelly's trying to teach Danny. We want to call it teaching. It's more like forcing it on her, is that like her pain can be excised if she experiences it as a group. And that's why we have like that, you know, mourning scene with her and all the girls like crying together. And then the sex scene for Maya is a group thing too. Like all of these people are here to experience her getting impregnated as a team.
Yeah.
And yeah, when they grab, when the one of them grabs her hand, but what really pushes it over the top into absolutely hilarious to me is when
assisted shagging.
The lady at the end comes in. It's like an old lady comes in and starts pushing his ass. like finish, do this. You know?
So good.
She's like, quit dragging it out.
Is that your favorite scene, Georgia?
I don't know. I don't think I'd call it my favorite scene, but it did make me laugh, because it's also at the point where like you have really been through some gruesome stuff throughout the movie, so it's kind of it's still pretty gruesome in its own way, because like you really have to like open up the question of consent with Christian. Like, does he want to do this? Is it just like he's been pushed into doing this? Is this like, is there rapiness involved in this?
Well, he was pushed, yeah.
And I mean, he was pushed. Yeah, no does not mean no in that room. And yeah, it's the one point where I kind of feel sorry for him, because he just doesn't know what he's got himself into. And this was not, you know, what he signed up for. But in another way, he's been a complete crap sack the entire movie too. Not that makes him deserve this, but
no, I think he got what he deserved, to be honest. I think there was certainly, I think when things are set in motion for both these characters, they couldn't be more separated emotionally from each other in terms of their relationship. So
yeah.
What's the significance of the bear suit, guys?
Well, the picture really at the beginning, do you remember when Danny is asleep on like the daybed thing or whatever? She has this huge picture above her bed, which is like the bear and the girl.
Oh, Georgia. Okay. Good job. All right.
So Pele was like, we need a bear. Someone import a bear. Come on.
And they got one.
Kill this guy.
It's in the cage. It's in a cage when they walk into the village. They're like, what's that bear? And they're like, it's a bear.
Is it
move on.
Is it in a Nick cage?
Oh, no, it's not. Although there is like a Wicker Man parallel there.
Right.
So I get that.
I didn't see any bees in this film.
I mean, they're bound to be there, but they weren't as central. Bees.
Yeah.
There were maggots, though.
Oh, there were. Yeah. Well,
my favorite shot for sure is a scene you've already mentioned, Georgia, is the two like elders, if you will, with their death ceremony. That when they fall off the cliff and die, that was amazingly done for me from a directional point of view. You know, where the very simple and matter-of-fact nature of it creates its own kind of style altogether for me. Like, to begin with, these people are carrying the elders on their own kind of chairs in the air, like they're kings and queens. There are these kind of big, grand, wide shots and big push-ins with the camera. Then when the woman who's about to jump first seems to lock eyes with Florence Pugh, Danny's character, at a very high angle, and the sound design is incredible, how her kind of heavy breathing is incorporated into the score so brilliantly. Then the music kind of cuts out when she jumps. Then the camera perfectly captures the fall right until the impact. No cutting away at all. Then as we're seeing this all through Danny's eyes, kind of the sound goes all muffled, like she's numb. Yes, kind of very stereotypical and cliched, you could argue, but it works thematically so well for her character anyway. And when the guy is about to fall, you obviously know what's going to happen. So it becomes even more matter of fact, shot with a completely static camera. Like the guy falls from the top of the frame to the bottom, almost like a cartoon for comedy, but here completely flipped on its head done for utter horror. Plus there's no shying away from the gore, basically just jump cuts going very close into mangled bones. Plus I love the collective groaning when the guy is still alive and someone's like, don't worry, I have a massive hammer to bash his head in. So again, just very, when we were talking about detail, this scene in particular, certainly with the editing, is so well constructed with the details of like the rhythm of it and the timing as well, and the framing to just create maximum horror, really. It's just incredible how simple it is as well, and yet it creates its own style within that. Incredible.
I think it speaks to us subconsciously because, what you said, Martin, is like how there's a comedy with the first person jumping off, like a dark comedy. Okay. And then we have like this misdirection of our people that are to be sacrificed brought up on these chairs. And what I actually thought about was like Looney Tunes, like Roadrunner and Wile E. Coyote. You know how, it was like Wile E. Coyote would like run off the cliff and fall, but then he would be fine. So it's kind of like, in a way, subconsciously, maybe we were thinking that because you're just like, oh, this person ran off. They should be fine, whatever. And then they're not. And then, when the older man goes, and he's second and you're like, your heart is in your throat, and then he misses and his leg breaks. The person with the mallet, again, this is kind of like a gag from Looney Tunes. People would always pull out like a massive mallet and bonk someone. So I do feel that there is some humor that's in here, that it's just to play with this. And again, it's all on this psychedelic trip angle. So it's the more we see it, the weirder it is. Like that huge feast, right? Makes you think of like the lyrics of Hotel California. Something about that feast, which is really weird, is that they shot this in like, maybe the hottest summer in Hungary, and all this food was there, and like the pig head in the middle just had like maggots all over it, and like the food was just rotting in the sun. And they shot that scene for about 2 weeks. So it adds to the weirdness.
2 days.
Oh, 2 days?
Yeah.
Wow, I was
even
thinking 2
still,
weeks.
It was bad. I mean, damn.
There wouldn't even be a head left. I don't think you could have a
pig head sitting there for 2 weeks.
Oh my God. I once directed something years ago, and this was the deal. It was like a nuclear winter, and people were celebrating Christmas. So I went to like a local turkey farm, and I managed to get a deal on turkeys with stuffing. And I would buy them like, I don't know, 4 or 5 at a time or something. I'd put them in a fridge at the theater, and then I'd bring them out on stage. Yeah, it turns out they started to rot, and like the actors like found this out when they were supposed to be eating this dinner on stage, and I had no idea. And then like, because I could tell, because I knew the play, I was like, man, they're really not touching the turkey tonight. I wonder what's wrong. And they were like, John, it's rotten. I'm like, oh my God.
That's dire. That's
terrible.
That's a great story. I didn't have dinner. I didn't have dinner 20 minutes ago. It's fine.
Don't count on me to bring the turkey, man.
What's your guys' favorite scenes, directional wise?
Oh man, I gotta go with like I would have to go with maybe the last bit there where, you know, the fire's happening and Danny is like going through like this really cathartic, I guess, final like trauma of burning Christian, and she has like this huge flower headdress and cape, and the cape is almost like pulling her into the ground, it seems like I don't know if it's just really heavy or what, or if it's like the burden of her pain or whatever's going on, but it's like she can't even move, like she's become like a part of the ground, like she's earthed. And then, you know, we have that final scene where she goes from having like that really sad face to like smiling. And again, I feel like that could kind of go to cliche in some ways, but it doesn't to me, because that stuck with me for like days after I first saw this movie. I thought about it and I thought about it and thought about it. And it really, to me, is kind of the key to unlocking the movie for me, is that, you know, she does have this cathartic experience, which to anyone else would be horrifying and awful, but to her is like exactly what she needed to like move through her horrible experience in her life. And I just thought that it was just really well done, and it calls back to like all that thing that we've talked about with the color and the life of plants and this and all of these different things. And I just think it's really well done. I think about that a lot.
John, your favorite scene?
Oh man, this is hard because talking about this film is hard for me because there's so much packed in.
Yeah.
I don't even know how to break it out to give a piece of it. I think what I'd have to say is I really, really enjoyed something I talked about earlier, which is when they knock Christian out. And they shut one eye and they shut the other. And that guy just coming in, like the precision of that and the terror. We feel the helplessness of Christian. We know there's nothing that he can do. And it's like we don't want to see what's happening, but we know that we're going to. It's amazing how they were able to put us in the position of Christian for that particular moment as the audience. I think just the terror, I think would be my favorite. And one last thing I do want to mention, which is the sleeping quarters, right? It's like a barn, and there's this huge barn door.
Beautiful.
Right? And inside the huge barn door, there's a little normal door, which is just like, what? It's just something like, again, Alice in Wonderland. This is a fairy tale gone bad. Like, we think fairy tales are good, happy stories, right? And that's what we have now. But when you look back at what was considered a fairy tale, these are harsh stories.
Pre-Disney.
Yeah. And so I don't know. I think that's
a great point. I mean, I love that. Yeah. I think we do see that throughout. This is kind of like a callback to the original folk tales and fairy tales that had these gruesome elements to them, for sure.
So, directing score for me, for Midsommar, I mean, it's hard not to go really high.
Yeah.
Because of just how brilliantly done everything is, really, in terms of the costumes, the pacing, the level of detail. And I'm just so impressed with that, as you say, Georgia, that those last couple of scenes where you're just kind of, you end up just being swept away to the end point, the natural end point of this film. It just carries you through this horror, really, in broad daylight, which is kind of, we forget, is kind of the more remarkable thing about this, is just the simple thing is that this is a horror film in broad daylight, and there's hardly any darkness, no shadow really, and darkly lit scenes at all to create horror, which a lot of horror films rely on. This doesn't do that. So yeah, and that death scene when they fall off the cliff is just quite remarkable for me. The level of shock and terror I remember experiencing the first time I saw that was just like, oh my God, I've not seen anything like that before. So I'm going to go pretty high, like a 9.5 Yeah, 9.5, really. I think it's that good. How about you guys?
I don't know if you want to score, if you want me to, I mean, yeah, I'm very similar with you with my rating, I think, because to me, I don't know if it gets much better than this. Another movie that we talked about was The Shining, and I don't know if we rated that a 10 on direction, but we should have.
Yeah.
But I think this is like just under that for me. And I'm probably going to mark down the screenplay a little bit, which was also Ari Aster. So, like, I think I'd go with like a 9.8.
I mean, I'm tempted to go the
that's
distance.
really high. So
it's that good, but you have to ding something. No one is flawless.
It's not absolute perfection, but it's real damn close.
The only thing I could say about the film is I feel that the film flies, but at the very end, maybe if it was a little tighter, that would have served me better. Like instead of maybe like approximately 2:30, like maybe 2:15 or 2:20. Because I feel that there's such a fantastic momentum in the film that right when we're barreling to the end, like we're like, what is going to happen?
Barreling.
Oh, nice. Nice. This is good work.
No, but I agree with you. There is a little, there is a little kind of a slowdown, a little miring that happens around the time of the feast, the May Queen feast, where you kind of just are like, all right, maybe we should just get on with this.
You could argue like Josh's death is a tad tropey. That's certainly something that wouldn't look out of place in most slasher movies.
Yeah.
As well, but yeah, I think overall, like incredible stuff.
Yeah.
So, and apparently there is an extended version of this film as well.
Really?
There's a director's cut, I think.
Yeah.
I think that's what we actually saw.
Oh, it is?
I think that's what we watched this time, yeah.
Okay.
I read something that was like, this scene is only in the director's cut. I'm like, I just saw that, but I guess...
Was it at the end? I'm curious.
No, there was this scene with something that Josh is saying in the car, I think, or something, that's just a little bit different. There's like just a little bit of extra fleshing out of certain things.
Yeah.
But to me, it didn't seem new when we watched it. So I didn't even know that I was watching a director's cut.
No idea.
I mean, it worked. It flowed great. And maybe it added a little bit extra that we thought was bogging it down. But I don't know. I don't think it was bad.
Screenplay then. So obviously Florence Pugh's character Danny and her relationship with Jack Rayner, Christian, have a rocky relationship from the start. And I think Christian definitely struggles in an ignorant way in how to help Danny in her grief. But Danny mistakenly always thinks she's the problem and is always apologizing for Christian's mistakes, like forgetting her birthday. But when kind of the big scene happens, when those two people take a tumble and die, it's interesting in how all the different Americans and the Brits react to it. Like the Brits are like, nope, we're off, we're going home, thank you, no thanks. Josh, the guy wanting to do his thesis on this community, is obviously shocked, but actually becomes sort of even more hyper interested in their culture. Danny is obviously completely numb to it at first and just doesn't know why she's there, really. But Christian doesn't particularly change much from seeing brains splattered across the ground other than being sick. He almost out of the blue decides to copy Josh's thesis on this community instead of trying to care for Danny. For Danny, you can definitely tell in certain moments before the others die that she can recognize that Christian is giving her the cold shoulder and that they both become more involved in this community to get away from each other in a way. So more so for Christian than Danny, and she's just very emotionally vulnerable to any sort of influence as the movie progresses. So it's just really interesting how, I mean, that's the big turning point in the film, isn't it? That the tumble off the cliff and kind of sets the ball rolling to a certain extent. Well, it sets the ball going at 100 miles an hour, frankly, emotionally, I guess, to get to these real deep core emotions. I guess the only little bit of a critique I would say is just the British characters don't really get a lot to do in this. The guys from London, I think it's Simon.
And I don't know what her name is.
Yeah, they're so quick. I was like, wait, who are these people?
I mean, they're not wise,
Connie,
are they?
maybe?
Yeah, they get killed off pretty quick.
Well, he went to the train station.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I gave him a ride.
Apparently.
And I can only take one person at a time. I'll come back and I'll get you.
The reasoning is so great.
I love that reason.
Yeah, I mean, they were very disposable, I feel. I agree with what you're saying there. I think my other screenplay issue, maybe, is the use of, like, this Oracle character who's, like, an inbred, deformed character.
Yeah.
I just don't feel that was needed. I feel like, I kind of get it, but it kind of drags us into, like, Wrong Turn, Hills Have Eyes territory.
Yeah.
And I do think there are some, like, Texas Chainsaw Massacre type references in this movie.
Oh, sure.
Or other, like, horror films that it's kind of homaging a little bit. I mean, the thing I'm thinking about is Christian being kind of immobilized. I think there was a part of that in Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So I think that he is referencing things like that, but I don't think it needs to be, like, necessarily so literal sometimes. They even try to explain, like, oh, we deliberately do inbreeding to create these Oracle characters. And then we interpret, what they're saying. I mean, we don't really get to know this character. They're not treated like a human at all. Like, you just see them, like, finger painting in the book. And then, Josh is just taking pictures of that later. So for me, that character is almost really extraneous and takes it to kind of a weird and silly kind of place that I don't think is necessary. Like, I don't hate it. I don't think it's, like, the worst thing that ever happened in the history of the world or something. But I just think that it kind of introduces an element that I don't think it needed. Like, I don't think we needed that.
I think if you literally cut that character out, then you're not really going to lose too much.
No.
I guess you got to figure out a different way to kill off Josh, but, like,
I mean, I think you could just have Ulf kill Josh. I mean, I wasn't even sure if Ulf killed Josh or if that character killed Josh. Obviously, they were observing or they were part of it, but you could have just had Ulf kill him. Like, he was already pissed off at Mark, and of course, like, what he's really gets angry about is, these Americans, like, literally or figuratively taking a pee on, tradition. And, you have Mark literally doing that. And then you have Josh figuratively doing that by taking photos of this book that he's expressly been told he cannot. They're going into, they're doing things they shouldn't be doing. And Ulf kind of seems like he's very traditional kind of person. And he loves the traditions of the community. And these people, like, just outright flouting those traditions is upsetting enough that he's willing to kill for it anyway. So for me, you could have just had him do it. We didn't need that character. I don't really think that character adds a lot. And it feels like it's just being played for more grotesquerie. And I don't think we need more grotesquerie. We already have a lot of grotesque things that are occurring.
Yeah. Did you see that guy's legs? God.
Yeah, I know, right? I mean, come on. But, like, having it be a disabled person kind of is a little bit problematic for me personally. Yeah. Just my 2 cents.
Making them this kind of oracle figure that they're almost kind of drawing out their culture and their ways of thinking and interpreting what they're doing from these pictorial things in these books. So yeah, it's not particularly well fleshed out in that particular aspect of the script. So yeah, I don't think it adds too much, to be honest.
Well, I thought that something in my mind, I do this sometimes. I'll think things happen, then I watch it again and it didn't. What I thought was with the Oracle, that the Oracle might have killed Josh because Josh was really interested in his territory, and maybe he thought he would be replaced. I thought there was a real opportunity for Josh to become, a full-fledged member of the community as, their historian, because he was so invested.
Yeah.
Now, we know that he wanted to do this for his thesis, and then, this would set him up, for life, with the job, with the topic. But I feel like with Josh, his interest, interest in knowledge I think would have become so much that I think ultimately he could have become a member of this community. And I also thought that when he got hit on the head, that it caused some kind of trauma so that they would accept him as an oracle.
That's interesting. I mean, if that had been the take, that would have been interesting, but that didn't happen. So
yeah, what's also interesting about the film is that the Swedes are always kind of very open about their culture to a certain extent, obviously.
Right.
And only really answer the questions that they're being asked of them, and are perfectly happy to like answer questions they have. And you have these little oddities where like Christian spots this yellow pyramid temple away from the camp, and there's this kind of random bear that no one really questions. Then Pele mentions that their life cycle was like the changing of the seasons, and when we get to 72, you die. And again, no one really takes that on board until it actually happens. So then I think from then on, you have kind of these themes that these people are happy to share their culture, but you have to respect it. And if you don't respect hundreds of years of culture, you literally get hammered. And obviously that's where the kind of the horror elements come into play. So I was kind of interested in the fact that these people are very happy for these tourists to have a look around, but if you disrespect them, you're gonna pay for it.
I mean, I think there's also the element that like they're happy to share because these people aren't going anywhere. I mean, Ingmar and Pele have brought these people there as sacrifices, so they need to bring in like X number of outsiders, and then X number of insiders are all going into the yellow pyramid and burning. And so it's like, yeah, look around, learn everything you can. Awesome, because they're not going anywhere. They're just going to get burned up anyway.
Yeah.
Danny is the exception because she wasn't expected to be there. She was an unplanned guest. And clearly, Pele doesn't want to sacrifice her. He wants to bring her into the group, which he does. I mean, he's freaking thrilled when she gets the May Queen, and that's when he actually kisses her, like, significantly as well. It's like she's part of that group now. She's been completely brought into the fold. So I think she's the only one who, they do want to show everything to. Everybody else can see whatever they want because they're not going to take that information anywhere.
Wasn't there something in Wicker Man as well with when you were chosen, they had your photo up in the bar?
I don't know. Oh, that might be, yeah. And that was this too with the May Queen photos are all on the wall.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think
see the Wicker Man again.
Yeah, it's been a while. It's this has a lot of callbacks to that for sure.
Oh yeah.
Very similar type of movie.
So when we just have like Danny and Christian left of the Americans, kind of this Swedish community have them exactly where they want them. Or at least it's a lot easier to find their last few sacrifices to burn at the end. So at this point, certainly everything's just set in motion and there's no real like prolonged tension or suspense. You're just taken for a ride of spectacle until the end. And it just starts with kind of the maypole competition with which Danny wins, which I don't know. In my reading was, which I don't think she necessarily think like it was rigged that Danny was going to win. I think it just happened that way. I don't know, in terms of maybe it was just fate that Danny was going to win the maypole competition. But I think they were just happy for anyone to win. But there's no doubt about Christian being heavily manipulated by the T and the Swedes so that they would have sex with one of their daughters. So, but there's definitely an element that Christian is letting this happen for sure, even if he does look incredibly confused, that he has some choice in this. Then, of course, Danny sees the assisted shagging from Christian, which, of course, doesn't go down well. Then you slowly discover this collective sharing of emotions coming through for Danny, which I think helps her in her decision to pick Christian to be the final sacrifice. But as the temple is burning, everyone is sort of doing their own thing. Like some people seem angry, some people seem ecstatic, So I guess everyone is just experiencing different emotions on just a collective level, as we've all talked about. And Danny ends up smiling, and it's like she's gone through so much trauma that all she can really do now is smile, accept this new family that she has now. So yeah, that was kind of my take on kind of the last few scenes, really, from those two characters' perspective.
Well, the last song is "The Sun Ain't Gonna Shine Anymore," right? That's the song that they play.
That's just really, well, it's the end of summer. Summer's over.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, you know, she's, I don't know, she's transformed. I mean, that's like what I was saying earlier. Like, the final choice with Christian is a choice to bring herself more pain. And I think that's kind of where she had to be with this the whole time. I don't know. I think that like the May Queen question of whether she, you know, wins because it's rigged or it just happened.
Yeah.
I feel like it did just happen. And yet Pelly, that's what he wanted. And he thought it could happen. So for him, I do think it's a fate thing. I think that it also solidifies his place in the community. Because, you know, they basically say, you know, when they're right before they do the burning, that Pelly's intuitions are right always, or something like to that effect. Yeah. And this kind of implies that, like, you know, that was what he wanted all along, what he knew could be all along, that he had these feelings that she would be the right person to bring into their community, because they do have to bring other people into the community. That is one thing, I guess, that is the purpose, supposedly, of this deliberately inbred Oracle character, is that it brings up a discussion of, you know, if this is an insular community that doesn't bring in outsiders, do you have concerns about people interbreeding? And the answer is yes, they do. And that's why they bring in people to change that sometimes. So one of those people is Christian. They brought, you know, they have their eye on him to like impregnate Maya and bring in new blood somehow so that everybody's not related. But I mean, Danny would be another example of that, to bring in another person to the community so that they have another female of breeding age who can, you know, bring new blood into the community. So I think that's a part of it too.
Yeah, no, sorry, I wasn't trying to be rude. I actually was taking a look over here because one of the things when we were talking, and, you know, we brought up the last song, is I have to say that for some reason this film just makes me think about the lyrics of Stairway to Heaven, which I don't always like have lyrics exactly on my tongue. And I'm like, I need to check this. But I mean, your head is humming and it won't go. In case you don't know, the piper's calling you to join him. Dear lady, can you hear the wind blow? And did you know your stairway lies on the whispering wind? We can go on, and it's just like, okay, I actually feel like there's something about this. And of course, they talk about the May Queen, just the sprinkling of the May Queen
and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah. So, and it's just like, I thought about a Stairway to Heaven being like our sacrifice people that go up to the top. And jump down.
I liked your Hotel California too, though. They stab it with their steely knives, but they just can't kill the beast.
Yes.
You can check out anytime you like, but you can never leave.
Yes.
Those are all good ones.
Nice.
Again, this is the mark of a genius. This is a guy that knows everything, and it's layered. And the actors talked about what a pleasure it was to work with Ari Aster, because he was involved with everyone. Every single person that stepped foot on that set, he was working with. And he knew exactly what he wanted for each shot. And so it was just a matter of, you know, doing it enough times so that they got it. Again, like Kubrick. You know, I don't think they did like 100 takes or anything like that. But, you know, it's that same kind of laser focus on the idea.
To know exactly what you want and to have it be visual. And to write the script in a way that supports like what you're going to do later when you're like on set and you're trying to like make things all choreograph up the right way. I think that, you know, he's a very visual writer, so the screenplay reflects that. I just think that occasionally what I see with somebody who is a very visual storyteller is that sometimes there's story elements that maybe don't work as well
Sure.
as it would if you had like more of a writer writing a screenplay versus a director. And I'm not saying that like takes away from the movie as a whole, because I don't think it does.
No.
But that's where you get something like, let's put in this deformed guy to be the Oracle.
Well,
like,
it made me
when it
think
doesn't
about
really do
300.
anything.
Yeah, I definitely got to that movie.
Yeah, well, it makes
That's
me think
what I thought about. I thought about the guy with the shield, and like, you know, I was like, and I was thinking
Let me
about
fight.
yeah. Oh God, that guy. And like,
yeah.
you know, I thought about like Macbeth. I thought about the witches. I just kept thinking about like all these ways for this character to make sense. Like,
well, it looks a certain way, right? It's a disturbing looking thing. Like, these visual storyteller tells something about, you know, how this community hides away the imperfection. You know, there's something that is telling you something there, but I just, again, think it's kind of also really ham-handed.
Well, it is. Where are the parents? Where do they live?
Well, there are no parents. Like, they don't have parents. Like, they told you earlier that, like, once a person has a baby, the baby's raised by the collective. It doesn't stay with the parents.
So, okay. So the Oracle was not born, like, on the farm.
He was deliberately inbred from other probable inbred people, but they aren't raised by their mom and dad. Like, the baby doesn't stay with its parents. The baby is part of the larger community. So there's girls that are taking care of babies that are just community babies.
But where are the people that created the Oracle? Yeah.
We don't know.
Everyone has a go at bringing up the new ones.
Yeah.
The new babies.
Well, I don't. They don't point out who the parents are, but they said that it's the child is a product of deliberate inbreeding. So they're just part of the community. We didn't see them. They don't call them out.
That's interesting. I mean, they really went for people with unique looks as well. And it also made me think about Rosemary's Baby, you know, because, I mean, you know, we have, you know, Satan's baby that happens. And in this, we have the bear baby. But it was like, you know, it was a similar type of thing. Like, all these people work together to bring Satan's child to the world, right? And in this, you know, they worked really hard to bring the bear's child into the world.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's like this person really is intelligent, and I'm sure there's a lot here with mythology that I'm dropping the ball on, you know, because the artistry in the film, like the way that they had all the art painted actually inside the buildings in their village, you know, was incredible. And I feel again that every picture in this tells a story, and we may only see it for a second, but if we went back and paused each one, I bet we would find even more.
There's a whole story behind each picture, probably. I expect Ari Aster's just spent an awfully long time on the script with all kind of the influence that we've picked up. I guess a lot of those actual influences that he's brought to the script anyway from Ari Aster. So, favorite lines, people? I loved the one from Will Poulter when they're all kind of doing that first drug trip, and he says to Josh very firmly, "Josh, can you lie down, please?" I don't know, that just tickled me a lot.
It's really important that he lie down.
Yeah,
Very funny. This is funny because like not a lot of quotes actually stuck out to me. Like I thought it was really interesting how they didn't translate a lot of the Swedish speaking throughout, so that like you felt like an outsider. The Americans are like outsiders; they don't know what's going on. And there's like all these traditions that they're referring to that you don't even know what it is. Like when Pelly first tells them that the whatever, I don't know, Attis Storpa, whatever is going to happen the next day, and Josh is like, "Oh wow, really?" Like, because he knows what it is, but like nobody else knows what it is. And Christian is like, what is it? You just got to tell me, man. Like, it's not fair. And so I thought that was effective. I'm trying to think, like, quote wise, what do I think about?
I got one. It's a paraphrase, but I got it.
Yeah.
Mine is when Josh is just so angry that Christian is deciding to horn in on the thesis as well. Yeah. And that he tells him that he's actually impressed by the size of his balls to come and do this. I thought that
I'm actually impressed that you're going to try and take over my thesis. Or
yes. Yeah. I thought that was outstanding. That was such a great argument too. That scene was great because it showed you that Josh actually was a friend and he was a nice person. Because I have to be honest with you that if somebody was doing that to me, I don't think I would have been able to have it that locked down, with my language and demeanor. Because this seemed to be something that Josh had just dedicated his life to, as he said. And then you have Christian that just wants to do it
out of the blue.
Yeah. Well, I felt like Christian wanted to do it to get away from his girlfriend. I also think Christian is an opportunist. And he thought to himself, you know what? This is a deadlock. This would be cash for life. And if my friend's doing it too, we can do it together. I don't really need to learn anything. This is great.
Where's that tea?
Yeah. You got another one of those pies? I'd like another pie, please. Thank you.
Can you take the hairs out first, though, please?
Again, obviously, I've made it clear, I like the character of Pelly because I think it's the most interesting. But I really like it when they are on the first trip and he's like talking about the trees and like that they're breathing. And then I also like when he is like confronting Danny, like this is this big moment when they're like in the kind of sleeping quarters and, she's kind of wigging out and he's trying to like bring her down and like, not really, because he's trying to make her feel more, right? And he says like about her relationship with Christian, this is where I think he's really driving it home that like he loves her and he feels like he can do something for her that Christian can't. And he says like, Danny, he's my good friend and I like him, but do you feel held by him? Does he feel like home to you? And he's appealing to this fact that she doesn't have home anymore. Yeah. Like her home has been ripped away from her and he's trying to offer her a new home. And he has been every time that he's spoken to her. When he talks to her, like in the apartment, like right when she comes over and then she finds out about the Sweden thing and everything. Like they're sitting on the couch together and he immediately is like, oh, my parents died too. Like he's like trying to like always push her to feel. So yeah, I like a lot of the things he says. I think it's interesting to just see that character over the course of the movie. And he's always talking nature. Like everything he's talking about is always a nature tied thing. And it's funny with the Stairway to Heaven, I feel like he's like the piper and that's he's leading them where they're going. Like he's the piper. Yeah.
Well, there's also something else I was just thinking about with the sister, the suicide is like she has this chat message that's like, I'm going away forever and I'm taking our parents with me. So it's interesting because she's actually referring to like what's happening with them as a journey, a trip, and again, we have so many drug trips in this and we also have physical trip as well with them going to Sweden. It also makes me think of like a Egyptian culture, right? How, when the pharaoh would pass away, you would have people that went into the tomb with him.
And it was a great honor.
Yes.
That's just what they say about the elders like jumping off the cliff is that it's a great honor for them to do that.
Yeah.
Well, that's far out.
Everyone wants to do this at the end of their life, They're all kind of sort of looking forward to it.
We have parents die.
It's interesting as well you bring that up about the email from her sister, the fact that literally her sister is telling her the truth that I'm gonna die and I'm gonna take my parents with me. Like that's very matter of fact and yet Danny doesn't want to believe that, obviously. And you have that throughout a lot of the film as well when they're talking to the Swedish people. The Swedes are telling them what is going to happen, but they just don't want to believe it at the time until it happens for real. And they're like, what the hell? So that kind of happens time and time again, I think, throughout the script, which is really kind of interesting. But for me, my favorite line, and of course is a funny one, and when they point out the bear and and Will Porter's like, are we just going to ignore the bear then? It's a bear.
Yeah,
that's good.
Ingemar's like, it's a bear.
Never mentioned again until they start gutting it. And you know exactly who's going in there.
It's kind of Chekhov's bear.
Yeah.
One thing that like came up when we were talking. Okay, so the parents die at the beginning, right? And so we go to this village and we have, which seems to me like a couple, right? And I imagine that they probably are parents. we watch the parents willingly kill themselves. And then Danny has a trip out where she exhales the smoke, which is like her sister who had like the mask on. So again, when we talked about that shot, right, with the camera, when they're driving to the village and it flips over.
And kind of get lost in the sky. Yeah.
Yes. What if it's some kind of like alternate reality? Is she her sister? Is this another thing? Or is this just another way that her trauma is playing out? I don't know.
That's interesting.
Yeah. No real answer,
Maybe.
but yeah. Okay.
Screenplay score for me. Yeah, again, I think you got to go fairly high. I don't think as high as directing. I guess, yes, there are some deaths and some parts that are a little bit tropey, and the Oracle character how much does this add, and how much does this character add to the whole theme of this film and in relation to the American characters, etc. I'm not sure. But I think overall it's just a really interesting exploration of how far grief can go and how you can rediscover yourself in such a painful way. And I don't think there are many films out there that has really explored those themes just quite like this film. So I will go a solid 9, I think.
That's exactly actually where I was going to go.
Yes.
If that's okay
Yeah.
with you.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, because like you said, we did point out some nitpicky things that obviously, weren't perfect. But at the same time, the things that it does right, it does so right. Just the journey that Danny goes through is so well plotted, and overall pacing wise, it's really well done. And I just think there's not much else to say beyond what we've already said, except that it's really well done. There's a couple of little things that I can point out that I personally would have pulled out. But, there's also arguments to be made, and somebody else could see this and see it in a completely different way that might change my mind. And for that reason, I do think a 9 is fair.
Awesome. Right. Acting then. So,
10.
of course.
10.
Yeah. Florence Pugh, 10.
10.
Florence is great when she's on the phone to her boyfriend, Christian, near the start of the film. Like, she's in tears, worried for her sister, but he's trying to reassure her and not to worry her about it. But when they say "I love you" to the end to end the conversation, it just doesn't sound very convincing from either of them. So you get their fractured relationship before you even meet Christian, and even obviously from Florence Pugh's face on the phone, like, you can tell this is the start of something that's going to fall apart between these two, especially.
Yeah. I think that Florence Pugh gave a career-defining performance in this movie. I mean, I think it's like a career-making performance, because I can't imagine that anyone who would be in charge of casting things after this would have looked at her and not wanted her to be in their movie. Like, she's so good. She's so intense and yet real at the same time. She has to go through these super emotional lows that she manages to do over and over in different textures. I don't think that every time we see her upset, it's upset in the same way. There's like a different kind of sadness and despair and anxiety and panic and fear and, just ennui sometimes. And all these different types of things that she's going through are different. And Florence Pugh captures every single one of them. I don't really think she has a false emotional note once in this movie. I just think she's phenomenal. And I mean, I think, John, you said earlier, like, there's really no movie without Florence Pugh. And I agree. No. Like, I think, as great as Ari Aster's direction is, as great as he, wrote this movie, if he didn't have Florence Pugh, we would not feel as strongly about how good this is, because she's that good. And the fact is, pretty much everybody else in the movie is also just as good, but because her performance is so unbelievably stellar, it kind of makes everybody else's performance seem like, adequate in comparison.
Yeah. Even though it's like a career high for them. Like, that was amazing. Damn it, Florence.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Like, I mean, Will Poulter is a great actor, Mark is a shitty character, and he does a great job of playing. And I think Will Poulter is really great at kind of being like this comical bully jerk, and he does a good job. Jack Reynor is really good at making you dislike him intensely, I think. Even when he's being victimized, you kind of are still like, oh, this guy sucks. Yeah. And that's kind of hard. Like, I would think as an actor, like, you don't want to be that kind of a person who everybody thinks is awful, but he does such a good job of it.
Yeah, I think Jack Reynor is really good in this, but I think he's definitely given like the task of deliberately not being very expressive as his connection with Florence Pugh is falling apart. And so certainly in the middle part of the film, his attention is with this community for his thesis, even though it's kind of half-baked, this whole idea anyway. Then when it's just him and Pugh left of the Americans, he drinks this kind of special tea for the mating scene. And the sex scene that follows is extraordinary from an acting point of view when he's just thrusting away with this girl and it's like he's just not present at all. Then this other kind of woman kneels down next to the girl and Jack Reynor just looks so confused, but has some level of awareness at the same time, I think. Then kind of the grunting being mimicked is just so uncomfortable to watch. Then when Florence Pugh sees this and like runs back to the rooms, it's, in an absolute state. And all the other girls seem to be helping with her breathing to seemingly trying to calm her down. But then it kind of morphs into this collective wailing. And it's as if it gets so intense that the camera has to cut away to a wide shot. I'm like, whoa, guys, this is too much. I can't go tight anymore. Then, of course, we get the assisted thrusting to end the scene.
We also have to call out Wilhelm Blomgren as Kelly, because I feel like his performance is very subtle, but what he's doing, every time the camera's on him, he is doing something, and it is in character, and it means something. I think that he does a really good job of something that I would have to imagine is really hard, which is creating kind of a dual kind of character where you have what he shows and what he's keeping in, because Pelly is only meting out a certain amount of his personality or his knowledge or his feelings the whole time, and he's got a whole other thing going on behind the scenes, very calculating and very, measured. And I feel like I can see that happening. Like, I just, maybe not at first, but you start to pick up on it. And it is, I think, down to his performance, which really brings out both the text and the subtext.
He does an incredible job for me as well, as you say, Georgia. He always kind of keeps you guessing, especially before they go to Sweden, about what his intentions are on this trip. And all we really know is that he's going to take his friends there and show him around his creepy village. But there's something about him that's just too quiet for me. And when, like, Florence Pugh as Danny asks about what picture he's drawing in his notebook, he puts that away pretty sharpish. It's all very subtle stuff, but the whole book thing is really interesting detail that just gives you that question about him of like, what are you up to, man?
Yeah, it's very shady. Like, what is this deal?
Let's keep this picture between us.
Yeah.
Happy birthday.
Yeah. Well, that's another time. Like, he knew it was her birthday, and he would never have said something to Christian like, aren't you going to say happy birthday to your girlfriend? No, he wants to use that as like ammo against Christian.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that character. I think he's the most interesting person in this, obviously, besides Florence Pugh.
Silly question, guys. Favorite performance?
Oh, gosh. Who was it going to be?
The butt pushing lady.
Butt pushing lady. Oh, God.
Oh, that's got to be the character name on the credits. Yep, I was butt pushing lady. Can I have an audition, please?
I mean, she went for it. She's like fully nude and pushing some guy's butt, and we kind of went with it. So she's got to be up there, butt pushing lady. Yeah, no, obviously Florence Pugh again.
Definitely.
Career making performance in this.
Florence Pugh for me.
Yeah.
Acting score. Ooh, I mean, again, it's super high. You know, I think this is definitely right up there. Probably Florence Pugh's best performance. I haven't seen all of her movies, but like, there aren't many actors that can go this deep emotionally. I mean, that wailing scene, that collective wailing scene, I always come back to. And there's obviously so many other scenes with her that I can think of that you can imagine that a lot of other actors couldn't even get to those emotional places. And apparently, like Florence Pugh has said, it took her a really long time to get out of this character just from an emotional standpoint. Obviously, I think everyone else is as you guys say are really good, but they're giving like incredible performances. But it doesn't. It feels like fairly standard compared to what Florence Pugh is doing. So I will go with a 9.3 for me.
Yeah, I think that's fairly close. I kind of might pop that up to a couple tenths to a 9.5. What is your feeling?
Yeah.
You're the actor here, so you probably have more experience in having to be like all emotionally outraged and upset. So I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I would lay it down. I would give them the whole thing.
You give them a 10?
It's
really?
The reason I feel
there's
that
so many
way,
people that are afraid of 10s, including myself.
I mean,
a 9.97 then. No, but it's just like the thing that sticks out to me is I know how little time people have when they're working on projects. And, you know, if they're working, you know, in this very hot summer on a set they've created, you know, Ari Aster has the idea of what he wants and they'll keep doing the scene until they get it. But it's just like some of these takes, it's just like you can tell from the second we go in, you're already there. And it isn't like, you know, that other take necessarily just happened. It's just like we're completely available. And it's that there's so much to that. The uncomfortability of the relationship between Danny and Christian is so nuanced. And I really, I don't know. I'm completely invested. And Ari Aster wanted every single character to have a story, to have a character. This isn't something where you have guy who delivers pizza. You know, that guy is not in this. Everyone who's in this has something.
I mean, it's a 10 if that guy's in this film.
Yeah. It's like, if the pizza guy showed up.
Came to hoard out pizza, then they would change their lives. They would have had pizza at this point. I think that you actually have a really good point, and I'm willing to go up with you on the 10 because it isn't just that, you know, Florence Pugh is doing this amazing emotional performance. She's doing it with like a camera like this far away from her face. Technical, there's also technical aspects of this because again, like Will Poulter was saying, it's highly choreographed, even where you need to stand and things. So for her to be thinking like, okay, I need to hit my mark, I need to be in the light, I need to tilt my face a certain way, and be able to do that while at the same time plumbing the absolute emotional depths is pretty impressive. And I think that overall people are doing that throughout, and it's not just her, it's everybody. So I think that the fact that they were able to balance like the emotional insane things that are happening with like these technical needs. I watched a thing about like how they filmed like the maypole dance, and it looks so organic, you know, when it's happening. But like they, in between some of the rows, there was like a camera track and things. So like they're like dancing around camera track and the camera is following them and they're, you know, having to make all these movements. And at the same time, Florence Pugh is emoting like it's, you know, her life depends on it the whole time. And also kind of communicating that she doesn't know what she's doing and she's dancing and trying to follow. And it creates like this confusion element. I think I would go with your 10. So we'll do a 10 for acting.
Yeah.
I feel like it. Yeah.
John's not afraid of a 10.
I mean, on this, I'm really not because I mean, everyone all down the line, I would say everyone had to fully commit to be in this. And I know we talked about the Oracle character perhaps not needing to be a part of the story.
Still a good actor.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't ineffective.
Mm-hmm.
If it was an ineffective performance, that definitely would have impacted how I feel. But not for 1 second do I stop and think about anything to do with the massive crew behind them, or, you know, people sitting at Video Village or craft services, or, hey, look at the light, you know, unless it's part of the scene organically. This is something that it really does suck you in, just like a really good fairy tale.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think the last 10 I gave on the podcast that I can remember is for Paths of Glory, when we did war films.
Excellent film.
Years ago for the screenplay, I think.
Yeah, that's a 10.
Right, let's add up the scores then for Midsommar, or Midsommar. Midsommar gets a very, very impressive 56.6.
Wow.
That's very high. Gosh.
And I have lost again. For sure.
I know. I feel really bad. Like, we've been talking for like almost 2 straight hours about this movie. Right. Guess we should talk about The Wonder now.
It's always epics with the Comfort Films podcast, people.
Yeah.
This is like when we did The Thing in Assault on Precinct 13.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just like you're dealing with...
We've talked about some really amazing films on this show, because we did The Shining.
Yeah.
Also, that was amazing. So, yeah.
That's it for part 1. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. Check out part 2 to see who wins. But don't stop there. Get involved and tell me what your favourite films are relating to the episode. Send us a DM or comment on Instagram and TikTok at Film vs. Film Podcast, for X at FVF_podcast. Plus, we are now on YouTube, so hit that like button and comment there. If you do, I'll give you a shout out on the next episode. Remember, please leave us a 5-star review and subscribe. Pod signing off.